Welcome back, everyone. It is week 3, day 1, afternoon lecture. We're going to go ahead and continue from where we left off this morning. We are doing validations, and we are going to talk about a few new things here. So let's go ahead and go over schedule. The first thing we have is regex. So let's learn a little bit about what regex is, because we're going to use it, and it is very useful, at least it was for me, to know this on the field. So I was very glad that Dojo prepared me to learn what regex was. They didn't say, hey, do you know what regex is? They just said, no, here's the regex. You know it. You're a front-end developer. Figure it out. So we're going to figure it out together today. And then we're going to go over bcrypt, why it's important to hash our passwords and to encrypt our passwords. And then we're going to type any loose ends that we have in our login and registration, and hopefully that won't take more than an hour. I know the first lecture was pretty long, so maybe this could be a short complimentary lecture, but we'll see what it goes. Alrighty, let's get started. So let's talk about regex. I'm going to go ahead and go over to the platform. And let's go here. And here is our very first regex expression. Okay. So let's talk about how to read this. Okay. So, wait, sorry about that. All right. So this here indicates the beginning of the regex expression. Let me see if I can make this a little bigger here. We know the regex expression begins with an R. Okay. And then here's the quotes that begin and end it. So what is it? It's a way to specify the characters that you could see entered in a certain order, and it's usually used to validate emails. Okay. I've only ever used it for validating emails. I'm sure there's other uses for it that are popular, but email validation is the first, I think, and most popular use. So why is this important? Because when we enter in an email in our registration form, it has to be in a valid format. All right. So before we even send, if they have a valid email, then we would send them an email, let's say in an official form for a registration. We would send them an email to validate that they have a true email address or that they're the owner of it. But before we even get to that step, we have to check to see if it's in the right format, or else we're going to be a waste of energy for our system to try and send this an email. So we need to validate to see whatever would be entered in the email form to see if it's a correct email. And there's many different styles of correct emails. This one allows for any .com. So any email at email.com or example at example.com. There's some that need to be specific, like when I worked at Wells Fargo, they had me do an email account that they only wanted Wells Fargo emails to go through the registration form in some area. And so they made this part after the @ sign. I had to make it specific to that account and some other accounts that would have been allowed to go through. But this here is allowing for any account. So you can see there's two parts, or there's more than two parts, but let's highlight all the parts here. So we have where's my blue? There we are. Okay. So we have Here's the first section. And what this is saying is you can have characters lowercase a through z, uppercase a through z, and number digits 0 through 9. And in addition, you can have these characters. You can have the dot, the plus, and then the underscore and the dash. So these are the characters that are allowed in the opening part of the email. So this part where it says uh, at email. Okay, this opening part right here is what we're looking at in this instance here. Okay. And this, so what's allowed here is these variety of characters. Lowercase a through z, uppercase a through z, and like I said, the number digits plus the dot, the plus sign, the underscore, and then a dash. Okay. These are the characters that we allow at the beginning. And then let's see, maybe I can switch colors without making it too messy. We have plus. This plus sign indicates what would come in the next section. You would have to have an at sign. So this at sign is mandatory. It's mandatory, and you can tell it's mandatory because it's outside of the brackets. Okay, it's outside of the brackets, so it is necessary to be seen. If it doesn't have an at sign, then we know it's not a valid email, right? So that at sign, what is the correct name for that character? Does anyone know by chance? Ampersand? Ampersand? No, that's the other one. Oh well. I know someone knows it. Someone posted in chat if you know it. But the at symbol, see here, we need this to be there in each email. So there's no email address that doesn't have that symbol, right? At email.com. So this is a necessary component of every single type of email address. So we're going to have it outside the bracket. Okay. And so then it continues and says, after this at sign, you can continue the email address and allow for any of these characters now. And so you can see a pattern here. It's all the lowercase characters, all the uppercase letters. I mean, not characters, letters. A through Z, capital A through Z, 0 through 9. And then dot, underscore, and dash. These are allowed on the second part of the email. So the first email could be something like, let's see, I'll use my name, dot Josh, because there's a dot, or and then I can even put an underscore 0 dash 2. It can even be that. Okay. So all these characters are allowed. And this format could be done after the at sign. So it could be this at, let's see if I can make this different. At example underscore email. So it allows for characters like this. Dash underscore dot. So that's what we're seeing within the brackets. All the symbols that we're allowing to pass through after the at sign. And then we get the very last, let's see. I want this color here. Then we get the very last section. All right, so we have the plus signs as the divisions. And for the very last section, we need there to be a dot. Do you see this here? So every email is going to have a .com, .net, dot, I don't know, LOL. I don't know if there's a certain website, dot, .net, .com. I think, gosh, I'm drawing a blank on all the types of websites. But we know that there's more than one, right? And so whatever possibility that could be at the very end after the dot, we're going to allow for these characters only, A through Z in uppercase or lowercase. Okay, everything else here in the regex expression, it's going to be a little hard to memorize how to write regex. And you don't need to know how to memorize how to write regex. You need to know how to decipher it. And you need to know how to be able to test your regex expressions, right? Because in the future, you may be building some for another login or registration, and maybe you don't want to allow for certain types of emails from certain domain names. But what we want to know is how to decipher it, right? So now, what do we use this for? We use this for validating, like I said, if an email is correct. And I see here, what is the slash in front of the period for? The slash is slash indicates that you have escaped special characters. Okay, a slash indicates that you have escaped special characters. And so here's the first special character that you see. So after, I mean, because it could be, let's say, email at email. And because we have dot and underscore, what if we have email dot as the ending part, right? What if it's like a funny email just like this where it's not conventional, and then they put .com, .com. So this slash means that you have exited special characters. So this sections off this whole area here. So that's closed that within saying that. Okay, great. So glad that's clear. Any other questions? Let's see. I mean, I didn't go over every single character. So as you could tell, like these plus signs are a sort of divider. What they do is they match one or more occurrence of the preceding expression. So it divides parts of the expression so that we can have differentiation in the sections or parts. What else? So these here, along with the quotations that you see, this upper caret and this money sign are just part of the opening and closing. Opening and then closing. Okay. So the way you start a regex expression is by going like this. And the way you close it is by the money sign and then this. And then everything else in between here. Okay. Okay. So, let's take a poll. How well do we think we understand how to read a regex expression? Okay. So again, we don't need to memorize how to write these. We do need to know when to recognize them, right? We got to be able to recognize them and use them to our advantage when we want to specify. Let's say your employer says, all right, for the emails that we can allow, we're not going to allow any domain names that begin with the letter A, right? So then you make it B to Z, or yeah, and or let's say at the after the at sign here, we don't want to allow for dots or underscores, so you can allow for that as well, or disallow it, or maybe no numbers, right? So this is what a regex expression does. Let's see how to use it now in our app. So let's pull up our code from where we left off. Where did we leave off? Let's go ahead and pull up our terminal. Here it is. There it is. Is it still running? Okay, it's still running. Okay, so then where is my, here it is. Here's my app. And so let's say for the email address, we don't just want to see something more than 3 characters. This isn't a valid email address. So we need a flash message to pop up here saying invalid email address if it's not in that regex expression form like we see here. Okay, so we need this to our advantage. And so let's peruse over to our validation method. Here's where we do everything related to validation, right? So we don't need to actually validate emails really that are going through the login, because the login is going to check if the email is already there. And we haven't yet to do that. We're going to do that once we get to login, but we're still on registration, right? So we want to work on this validation method. And so let's work by where we have the email here. Here we want to write another if statement that's going to validate using regex. Okay. It's going to validate using regex. And so we are going to go ahead and build a variable that holds that regex requirement that we saw on the platform. So we'll say regex equals, and then the regex expression goes here. Let's go ahead and grab it. All right, got it. Okay, so let's go ahead and come back here and paste it in. There we are. Okay, so now we have our regex expression. I gotta enunciate my words a little better. Like for the word espresso, I say espresso. Is it the other way around? Doesn't matter. Let's continue. All right, so we have our variable. It has our regex expression. And so let's create an if statement that says if our regex does not match with the input that the email that we received, if it doesn't match that sort of input according to this expression, then we're not going to accept it. We're going to flash say this email is invalid, right? So let's go ahead and start to build our if statement. And before I do that, let me think here. How am I going to go about doing this? Okay, so here we are. I'm going to go a little bit below here. And I actually, before I do this from scratch, from memory here, let's see if it's on the platform. Here we are. Okay. So we need some additions to what we have already in our variable here as in a regex expression. Okay, expression. We are going to do some imports as well. So we need to import this. And I believe if we import it just like that, we need to do some installation. I don't think that we can just pull it from that unless it comes from Flask. So we need to pip install this if I'm not mistaken. And we also have this email regex variable here that says re.compile, and then it takes in that regex expression. When we validate the user, when we take in that information, it says if not email regex dot match this here. So this is a inbuilt Python method here. So if this expression does not match the format that we receive our user email, then we're going to flash invalid email address, and then we're going to go ahead and set is valid to false, return is valid. Okay, so this is something we need to, an if statement we need to incorporate right here, this one here. Okay, so let's pull this, and we will put this variable at the top as well. We can put this at the top or where we had it, where I had it built. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. I'm gonna go right where I was, paste it in, and we're gonna change this here so it matches our if statement. We're gonna say email underscore regex. And there's another slight edit we need to make here. We need to say re.compile. So this is going to take from this regex module that we'll go ahead and import right after we make this addition to our regex statement. Okay, so here we are. Put it in. And it just needs a parentheses at the end here. So there we are, and we want to move it to the top just because we want to keep our methods a little bit easier to read. So we'll say cut and paste this at the top. And we also need to import RE. Okay. So whenever we import something, I believe this here, let's go ahead and pip install it.
I think we should be good.
There's maybe we should check to see if it's already in the list here of things. Let me see here. Pip list. I want to just be stubborn for a second. Well, okay. Okay. Well, let's just import it and trust Vincent. Okay, so it's already there. And so here is our if statement. If the user at email does not match our regex expression, then we're gonna flash this message. Python has re as a built-in package. Thank you, Vincent. Okay. So let's go ahead and test it. Let me start this up again. All right, it's up and running. Let's refresh this. And let's go ahead and give it a bad email. Let's go ahead and say register. Well, first, let's see. I want to see if both messages pop up here. Okay. So email must be at least 3 characters. And so we know that's popping up. And the other ones are as well. So let's see what we didn't trigger. All right. So if not email regex.match, is it receiving this here? Did I spell that correctly? Yeah, I did. It matches. Okay, so how about we console log something? Console log. Nope. Print. We're on Python. Print. We've reached this part of our regex if statement. Okay, let's just see if we can get this to print.
I think it's because did we forget the category for the flash? Line 38.
Ah, okay. Okay. Yes. So simple. Alrighty. So this here also needs to be in there, and well, might as well just leave this print here in case this doesn't work. Okay. There we go. Here it is. And let's see our console as well. I just want to see, yeah, I mean, of course it's going to print that. So we've reached this part of the regex in the if statement. So printing to the console is just a method of seeing if you've reached that part in your code. And I have, and it successfully worked thanks to Vincent. Vincent, you're the true MVP here. Okay, let's go ahead and continue. And so we have, up to this point, now finished using regex expressions to detect email patterns within strings. So no longer will we be able to enter an email that's not in the correct format, right? So let's go ahead and try and pass. Let's see if we can make all of these validations appear minus this one. So we want to give a correct email address now so that we don't see this. And that's how we're going to test to see if this works. So we'll say email@email.com. Okay, cool. I already had it written. So autofill help me out there. Email@email.com. And so I want to register. I know we're going to go back to this route because first name is gonna still should pop up in Flash because it's invalid. Last name still invalid. All these are still invalid. And so this though, we want to not be there, right? We want our regex to accept this email because this email is in the correct format. So let's go ahead and check it. Okay. Now, that's good because not only do we not see the the flash message that says that our email is not there, but it's also a correct valid email because it's saying that it's in the correct format, right? So we have this now not giving us there. So we just have a password, first name and last name. Okay, so let's do a couple more tests to make sure our email is pretty good. So we'll say email at email, and we'll leave out the .com. If I say register, still an invalid email address. What if I just say .com? Register, still an invalid email address. What if I say email and I give it some crazy characters like this? Email that at email.com. Okay, and I register. still an invalid email address. There's only a certain amount of special characters. So email underscore email at email.com. Will that go through? Register. That went through. Now our invalid email address is no longer showing up. Still just password, first name, last name, first name. Okay, so our email is our validation is looking good for this. What's some other validations I can say? I can say email underscore email at email underscore email.com. If I register this now, it shouldn't give me a flash message for this. This should be good. This is a valid email as well. And that's because, let's look at our regex one more time. We're allowing for underscores in the before and after the @ symbol. Okay, and then the .com after that we only accept characters. So one last test and we'll close this out. Email at email.com underscore com something, I don't know. All right, so register, invalid. So no, you cannot have special characters like that at the end of that expression there, as you see here. Okay, knowing regex is valuable. Okay, it's very important to know this. It's going to help you a lot on the field. It helped me, I can tell you. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and take a poll to see how well we understand how to use regex. Okay, numbers are looking good. Let's move on. All right, so now that our registration can account for our emails being valid or not, we want to move on to the next bit of our lesson here. So let's go ahead and take a look. We have bcrypt. Okay, we have bcrypt. What is bcrypt? Let's take a look here at the platform. Okay, before we learn exactly what bcrypt is, we want to think about what creating a user means whenever we enter in this form data. Let's look at a list of this account information here. We have first name, last name, typical information. We need an email for an account. And then we have a list of passwords. We have rainbows, password 123, cheese, password with 5s instead of S's, and donuts 411. Okay, these are not very secure passwords. It's very guessable list of passwords. And the way hackers hack into websites and guess people's accounts names is by having a list of easy passwords in what's called a rainbow list. And they use that list there to check and try to log in to your website with that list of pre-populated passwords that people typically use. Okay, so why this is important to us, we want to be able to receive that password input that they would submit in the registration, and we want to complicate it. All right, this is going to encode it. Okay, this is going to encrypt it, technically. That's the technical word. So we're going to make it hardly decipherable. It would be really hard to figure out the meaning of each of these combination of keys and letters, and that they represent someone's password. So this one could be equal to the one we saw, password like this. But when someone would look into if someone were to, for example, find a hold of our database and get inside it, if they were to look at all the passwords associated with the accounts, they would see the passwords like this. Okay. And so that protects us from giving out our user information that we would have on our website. Imagine someone goes into your website, right? Your account for your app that you have posted. And your app has a login and registration page where people have to register in order to use it properly. Someone logs in, someone hacks into your database and sees all the passwords of all your users. You want to have your passwords saved and encrypted in this format so that hacker doesn't have a list of every single person's information, because typically people don't have multiple different passwords. They have like 1 or 2 or 3 passwords they use for all their accounts. And so you get one of their passwords, you can probably log in and hack into the other accounts using their email and typical password like this. So bcrypt and encryption is the way to protect our users and ourselves from something like this happening. It prevents users or hackers from hacking in, and it's not 100% impermeable. So it can be cracked, but it would take a very long time to do it. And so that's what we want to do. We want to deter people from letting their computers run and run and run for a long time on this one specific crack of a password. And so it's going to deter. And nothing is completely unbreakable, but we are going to deter people from using or creating algorithms that would be able to sift through the many different types of combinations that we could have to encrypt a password entry. Okay. So let's continue. I need to be able to take advantage of encryption, and the way that we are going to do that is by using a tool called bcrypt. Okay, we're going to use bcrypt. So let's go ahead and go to this part of platform, and as you can see here, the first thing we need to do is install Flask-bcrypt. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go here. Let's stop our server before we install this thing. Let's take that line and paste it in. Okay, pip env install Flask-bcrypt, and I am in my environment here. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so that's completed. Installation successful. We have it now in our pip file.lock. So we can see that there. If we go to our app and we type in bcrypt, we can see exactly in our pip file where it is. /-bcrypt there. And this here is a bit more data, but we don't want to touch this. Are we installing in the virtual environment or in the project folder? So let's take a look here. Good question. Sorry. All right. At the project folder location. And the virtual environment should be in the project location, right? Because this is the folder location, and so this is where my environment is. So the answer to your question, Yen, is both. It's both. They're both the same in this instance. Okay. So we have now bcrypt installed in our pip lock files, so we know that we can use it. Let's go ahead and continue. How do we take advantage of it? All right. So the first thing we want to do is import it where we want to use it. So let's go ahead and import it. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and do that. So here I am. Copy this. And where do I want to import it? In my controller file. Okay, in my controller file. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. Let's go to the top of our controller here. Paste it in. And I think there was one other thing I needed, right? Let's see here. I just want to double check this here. We need this line as well. Bcrypt equals bcrypt app. So it's going to encrypt the app or allow it to be used in your app. Here we are. Okay. Okay, so now that we have imported it, the next step is to use it in our route here and in our method. So what we do is we create a variable and then we call on bcrypt to generate a password. And this password is going to receive this method call, this method is going to receive that request.form password entry. It's going to receive it. We can see it and we'll see what it looks like before and after. And then what we do with it from there we'll show in just a minute. But first we want to see how this bcrypt works. So let's go ahead and pull that in. All right. And great question I see here in the chat says, would it be easier to install Flask at the beginning with Flask bcrypt as well as PyMySQL? Yes. So let's, from now on, install them all at the beginning at the same time. I didn't install it at the beginning because I wanted to show us step by step how to use it. Okay. So what we said we wanted to do was create a variable called password hash. And we're going to make it equal to this bcrypt call and a method to generate a password hash from the request.form password. Okay, so let's go ahead and take both of these lines and put it in our register user method. So let's go ahead and see where that method is in our code. Okay, users registration. Okay, so let's go ahead and say in here, let's delete this comment because we know that's what we're doing. And then here we are. We don't want to go inside do we want to be inside this if statement? Let me double check here. I don't believe we need to be. Okay, so outside of this if statement, we've created this variable and we've said, okay, generate go ahead and encrypt this request.form password. In fact, what I want to do is print our request.form password. We're going to see a version of it before, and then we have this variable that's going to take what we had received here for password, and then we're going to hash it. Okay, so let's do that. I'm going to go back to my app, and let's refresh this. Oh, that means we need to start my server again. I usually forget to do that. Let's go ahead and restart it. All right, so we'll refresh now, and what we want to see in our terminal are those print statements that we just built. Right? Because when we click register, what it does is it takes us here. After it's validated, if everything is valid, it's going to then do these things. And I don't think we need a return. Let me double check to see if we need a return. Let me see here. Okay. Well, we want it to return redirected to our dashboard anyway. So let's go ahead and do that because we have nowhere else to go at this point. Okay, so we're going to just return redirect no matter what. Okay, so there we are. And so let's go ahead and see this password hashed up. Okay, so I'll go ahead and put some entries in here. And here's where we want to make a valid email.com. All right, so I have this password 1 entry here. I'm going to put into my password. And I haven't done anything actually yet with this confirm password. I'm going to just put it in for now, and then we'll fix that up later. And we should be redirected back to our slash, and we should see our print statements in our terminal that say password1 as a print statement. Let's add a little bit more to our print statement. We're going to say this is our password unhashed. By default. Okay. And we're going to comma here. And all right, so then our other print statement is going to say this is now our hashed password. All right, so we have 2 print statements. And so let's go ahead and see what we get. Let me just make sure my server is still running. See, when you make too many edits to your app here, well, see, I typed a little bit too much for my thing to continue running because I was running in my controller. So let's go ahead and restart it. And then let's see here again. I have to put in this information again. So let's go ahead and do it. Let's put a good name. Why is it that whenever I think of a name, Bible, Bilbo Baggins, Bible Baggins. He's another character. All right, he email@email.com and password password 1. Okay, so now let's see that those print statements here. Okay, so register, hit it. All right, so look at what we got. Here's our print statements. Here's our first one. This is what our form received, right? I typed in password 1 for the password entry there. And what did bcrypt do? Bcrypt turned password 1 into this long gibberish here. Okay, can anyone pronounce that? No. All right. But there is a yap in there. That's cool. I'm just being silly here. That's a joke in case you're lost. All right. So what we have is our encrypted password now. Now we can send this to our database and it will now live in our database in the password column for our user. And that is why we have our database here for password. When we created our password here, we said varchar 255, right? The reason we make it 255 is so that we can allow for a very long hashed password. This very long hashed password can be different lengths. And so 255 is allowing for the max amount of characters for varchar, which is numbers and letters, right? So it can take in a string of up to 255 characters. And this is what we're sending to our password field. Okay, so I think now is a good time for a poll. How well do we understand how to use bcrypt? How to make bcrypt turn a password entry into what we are seeing here. And this is what we send to the database, right? So we know how to do that. We're going to do that in just a second. But before we get to the database, we need to transform it. Okay. So we have now covered bcrypt. We've set it up in our Flask app. We've hashed our password. And we've compared the before and after bcrypt had hashed it. So now let's tie up all the loose ends in our login and registration so that we can use this properly. Let's be able to create a user. And once we create a user, we get to a new page where we say, welcome user, or let's be able to log out and then log in with that same user without having to get to that page just through registration. Let's create some users through this registration form and be able to see if that account exists. And if it does exist, then we should be able to log in. Okay, so now we're going to have to work with some CRUD functionality, which is the what? Create, right? So we're creating a user. All right. So I want to be able to use this confirm password here. Okay, I want to be able to use this confirm password. So how can I take advantage of that? Any ideas? I'm going to have to create an if statement for one. All right, so let's go ahead and go to my code and say in the user model, I'm going to go to where the password validation is and go down here. And we have to create an if statement here. Okay. I think we could probably do this without having to look at the platform. You guys are clever enough. How could we do this using our knowledge of coding so far? I already said we need an if statement, right? So I'll do that. I'll do that. Now, who can help me out? Someone type in the chat. Someone say something. How do we check if our passwords match? We're checking here. I want to see if this doesn't equal, if this is, for example, password 2, it's not going to match to this, right? It's not going to match to that. So I want it to flash that message in case it doesn't match. This is why we do algos in the morning, so that we can do very basic, easy functions like this. How would you treat this like an algo? How would you, receiving these two data points, check to see if they are the same? And if not, then flash a message. Jeopardy song cue. Do do do. There we go. Thank you, Manjira. All right, let's go with this attempt. So of course we're going to need parentheses for a parameter. How are we receiving the password? How are we receiving the password? At all. I mean, how are we even checking to see if the length of the password is more than 3 characters? Yeah, I know you guys are with me. If the user password, see here, this is how I'm checking to see if that form, I'm getting it all from the form, just like I'm getting everything else, right? User at first name, user at last name, user at email. This is just what I'm seeing here. Email, password. Oh no, this is for login. Password, password confirmation. So this one here is what we're looking for. We're gonna check to see if this matches this. So based now on this information, we should be able to figure this out, right? Because everything else that we're getting it from user password or user email. This is how we're getting the form data. So let's go ahead and say if user at password, and I'll stop here, right? How would you finish this statement? We're checking to see if the user password matches the confirmation. I'll even pull this over here so you can have that hint. Okay, not all answers are going to be spoon-fed to you at all times. Sometimes you're given a challenge on the job that you have to figure out for yourself. Plenty of times I had to do that. All right, so thank you for participating. Okay. Well, good attempts. Good attempts. We have user password. Nien, the thing you're missing on your input here is that you don't need a dot. Okay, these don't need a dot. User password. And Brooks, I like your attempt as well. But what we want to remember is to say if user is not equal to. Okay, so we can use that not to check, because if it is equal, we want it to pass. Yep. So good catch. Let's go ahead and say user at password confirmation. And let's put that in here where we want to flash a message saying passwords don't match, and that this flash message is related to validation. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. We're going to say flash. In Python, we want to, I believe, I don't know if Python accepts this. This is not proper syntax. You see, if I put this in JavaScript, that will work. Good question. In JavaScript, this would be a valid syntax. But in Python, it's just like this. And it's good that we ask these questions. It's very good that we ask these questions. So keep asking if you have any doubts. Now we're going to say flash passwords do not match. And then we're going to say this is related to registration. So let's go ahead and now test this out. All right. So is our server still running? Oh, someone said something in the chat that I think checks data type and value. Okay, cool. All right, nothing else. All right, so let's go ahead and look here. I need to restart my server. All right, it's up. So let's go ahead and go. All right, password 1, and I'm going to give it password 2. So this should trigger our regex statement. So let's go ahead and register. Passwords do not match. We got it. So let's go ahead and check to see if we do match our passwords, if we can eliminate this statement. Boom, we got it. Let's see that again, in case we missed it. I'm going to say A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And then here I'll type in H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P. These don't match, obviously. So let's go ahead and register. Passwords invalid. And then here we are, ASDF, ASDF, twice. Register. Invalid. Oh, well, I'm looking at email. Sorry, I got distracted by my own thought. Okay, so our passwords, if they match, that does not appear here as a flash message. So we are good to go. Another poll check for that one. How well do we understand how to check if our passwords match? If our passwords match? Why is that hard to enunciate? Check to see if our passwords match. There we go. It's the coffee. Okay. Let's move on. So that wasn't on our to-do list here, but we're tying up loose ends. And so now that I've finished that, there's a couple other things I want to do for our password. Okay. So let's see here. Where am I? Okay. Now, the other thing I need to do is change the input so we don't see those letters. This is why I made the input type text so that I can see whenever I create a password that the confirm password is, if it's the same or not, I want to be able to compare it. And before I send it through as a regex expression, I wanted to help you guys see that before I made it just all dots, right? So let's go ahead and then change that in our code. So let's go say here, input type password. And then here, password as well. Okay, so now if I do this, I don't see the characters. Okay, now that's done. So I want to be able to say for our password, I want there to be a requirement of at least one special character and one uppercase letter. Okay. I then need to go ahead and use regex again. I need to be able to use regex again. Okay, so let's go ahead and continue using regex. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to my app. Go back to my validation method. So I go, where am I? Validate here. And where am I? Here. I'm already here on my right. So in my users model, they only have one here anyway. I'm going to go ahead and create some requirements for my password. So the first one is password is going to in addition to being a certain length, right? So you need it to have a certain length. It's going to have to require at least one digit. Okay, one digit, and two, it's going to need one uppercase. One uppercase letter. Okay. So now that I know what I'm doing, I'm going to go ahead and start. So the first thing I want to do is make sure that there's at least one digit in my form. So let's go ahead and go to my password validation area. And I'm going to do it between these two validation if statements. And so now that I have multiple if statements, I think it will be a good idea to incorporate comments. Checks the password length. This one here is going to check to see if the password has at least one digit. And then after I do that, we're going to check to see if the password has at least one uppercase letter. And then this one below checks if password and password confirmation match. Okay, just so we get a little organized here instead of just seeing if statements line after line. And we should be doing these for the other ones as well, but let's just work where we're at. And so let's write an if statement to check to see if our password has at least one digit in it. Okay, so if you say if, and here's where we use regex. Okay, if we say re.search, and then we put in quotes 0 through 9. This is going to be what we check to see if a number is given as a value. A number is given as a value here. So we're going to also pass in user at password. And also we're going to say, we're going to check to see Did I put one extra parentheses? I think we're all right. Okay. So we're going to say flash password requires at least 1 digit. This is going to be for registration. So if we hit here, then we're going to say is valid is going to be false. Okay. And so let's go ahead and test this. I want to see if my regex will the regex search will check to see if a number is given in the value of password. Ooh, look at that. Careful. All right, so let's go ahead and see if I can get this flash message to pop up. Oh, let me double check to see if my server is off. It is. Okay, here we are. So let's go ahead and do that now. I'm going to say password. Ooh, you know what? I'm going to go here for demonstration purposes and change this back. So I'm not exactly done yet. And so that's why you can see I leave it at text for building. Okay, so I'm going to say password. And I want to then say password. There we are. So these match, but because it doesn't have one number in it, right? I'm going to say password requires at least 1 digit. So let's go ahead and register. Oh, and it didn't trigger. Okay, so we missed it. What did we miss? Let's see. Okay, where was I? Indentation. Maybe that's it. Well, there's a couple things it could be. I need to look. But I think I'm misplaced here. Oh, here I am. Okay. Indentation. I don't think that's the issue. I think these are a little over indented. But let's see here. I don't think that's going to break anything. Sometimes that is the answer. Let me double check that in case that is. All right. Password 1. Nope. I'm going to just do regular password. Regular password. No, it didn't show up yet. So let's write a print statement, and I think I know what the answer is, but before I confirm it, let me just write a print statement just so I can be there in case it's not true. Okay, so I'm gonna say print oh no, not here, not here. I am here. Print this. We've triggered this if statement. And I had a bunch of stars, so it's really big and obvious here. So I just want to know if we get into this at all. I don't think that this is reaching. So let me double check it. So I should see in my print statement here if I hit that. So let's go ahead and try again. Refresh. Password. Register. Okay, so we had that other if statement trigger, but we didn't get this to run. So what I think we may need is a little addition to our if statement. So I have here in my notes how I should do this here. And if this doesn't work, I'm going to have to come back to this. Okay, I think that was the last missing piece of the puzzle. I just had some doubts about it. Let me double check, and then if this doesn't work, I'm gonna come back to it as I figure it out. Okay, so let's see. I think my server's still running, and if it does work, I'm gonna explain why. So password. We should have that statement trigger saying we need a digit. There we are. Okay, so we did need it. Let's look at why. We are checking to see if a value equals none. This is going to return a value if it triggers. So we have to give a full statement here, which I had forgot to include. Okay, so apologies. What we want to include is the regex.search, and then in the parameters we give here what the requirements, the things that we're looking for, 0 through 9, and then we're checking that user password entry. If this is equal to none, then we go ahead and enter, and we've triggered this statement, so we know we don't need this anymore, and we have the flash message. I know this line's a little bit confusing there. How can I write this otherwise? I can maybe if I write a not in front of it. No, I don't think that'll make it any clearer. Let's go ahead and write the next requirement for our password, which is going to be an uppercase letter. Okay, so now that we can make a flash message pop up to require uppercase letters, we're going to say make this say A through Z. And we're going to say requires at least one uppercase letter. Okay, so now we have validation for our numbers and letters. So our password has to contain two things, an uppercase letter and a number. So I'll go ahead and say password 1 for both. But let's go ahead and check to see. I'm going to just remove the uppercase letter, and let's see that flash message. There we go. Password requires at least one uppercase letter. There it is. Okay, so now let's go ahead and see both messages not show up. So this flash, I don't want to see the requirement saying you need at least one uppercase letter or number. And so now, as long as these match, and as long as they have an uppercase letter, or if they have the numbers 1 through 9, or 0 through 9 actually, then we are able to receive that password. Okay, now we have completed all the registration steps. Now we should be able to send in an email. Send in an account to be registered. Can anyone, but before I do that, there may be one missing piece to our registration. Can anyone give me an example of one more thing I should check before I call this part done? before I say I have finished the registration. Just think in practical terms. I know we have the list of things we should do from our platform here telling us what we need. But can you think for yourself what you would need? Brooks, I see your hands raised.
Maybe if it's already been created before, like if it's a duplicate user.
Right. Yes, exactly. Okay. So if this username already exists, then we want to say one more flash message saying email already in use. Okay, so one last flash message and then we're good to go. Okay. So how do we go about doing that? We need to, well, for one, we're doing validation, right? So we need to be in our validation method. So let's go there. I want to clear this up. So I'm going to say close all, just start new. I don't want to see everything, close it individually. So let's go ahead and go to our model with our method. And, oh, okay. So I misplaced this comment. Let me put this here. Okay. All right. So we need to check to see if our email is already in use. So let's add a comment here to this one here, checks to see if user has input valid email according to regex requirement. And this one is going to say, this if statement checks to see if email is already in use. All right. So we have our if statement to check to see if the email is already in use. So we know what we want the result to be. So let's go ahead and give that flash message. Let's build around what we already know. So we want to flash, at the end of this, we want to flash this message, right? Email is already in use. Please use a different email. We're going to link it to the category registration. And then we're also, as soon as we know that this is hit, we're going to say is valid false, because we're not going to allow this to be true if the email is already in use. Okay, and so in order to trigger this, we need an if statement, right? So if, and then we need an if statement to check. So how are we gonna check what emails that we already have available to us? What's the way that we can do that? Well, okay, this is simple enough. How we have to check to see if the email already exists, right? So we need to check our database. We need to check our database. So we need to have a method that goes and into our database to go ahead and check. So let's go ahead and create that class method. So let's go ahead. We're gonna leave this undone, and we're going to say this is going to make reference checks to see if email is in DB. Okay, so let's go ahead and comment this out. We'll fill in this bit of pseudocode with real code. And I'm going to say, I'm going to create a class method, right? I'm going to create a class method below. And this class method is going to be there to check the database to see if an email is in use. So I'm going to create that method, and it's going to be a class method. Why is it a class method?
Because it needs to call on the instances or be able to access an instance of a user.
Right. We need the instance of the user that we would be selecting from the database to check to see if any of the emails exist at all. So we need to be able to access the database. So we're gonna say a class method for checking the database. And we are going to write a query now. We're going to write a query. So our query should say select all from our users table where where email equals the value of the email that we received from the form. And then we are going to then save that query and data to results and then return that result. So let's go ahead. I'll write that part for us already. We're going to say results equals so-and-so, and then we're going to return the results at the very end. So our query here is what's going to help us fill in our results, because if we remember, our connection to MySQL looks like this. Our line always looks like this. Connect to MySQL, and then the name of the database. I have here DB because I've saved my database here as DB. That's the name of my database. So I can access it anywhere in my app through this DB reference. And so I am sending this query with some data with it. So help me write this query, everyone. What's the line that I need to write here? I gave us a hint already. What am I querying in my database?
Select all from the cls.db cls.db users.
Mm-hmm. So
Oh.
I'm selecting from my users table.
Oh, right.
And what am I looking for in my users table?
Email.
Yep. So where email equals, and how do we get that value of email in here? What's the proper syntax for inserting that email?
It'll be the percentage sign.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, then email.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we have now our query. We send the results to the database, and then we return the results. Okay. So now that we have a method that checks our database for our that email that we would have sent in, we can now use this method elsewhere. Where do we?
The query select all from, is it user or user? That's
Users. Good catch. Thank you, Nian. Very good catch. Okay. So we need to be able to use this method call now somewhere where we check to see if that user that we would have been given in our form is equal to the user that we are given in our databases. So let's go back to where we were working above. Now we know we can trust this works. We'll test it in a bit, but so far this looks good to me. We're gonna test it in just a second. Okay, so we're gonna call upon it to test it. So we're gonna leave it here for now. Move back up to where we were, and let's uncomment this now. Let's indent a little bit so we know what we're working on. Okay. Oh, let's leave this commented. All right. So now let's check to see if email is in the DB. So now we want to see here if the email is equal to something in the DB. So let's write something proper in there. Well, the first thing I want to do is take that form data from user.email, as we see here in the above if statement. We want to take that and we can take this data, but before we do that, we're going to have to send it in as an object. Okay, we're going to have to create an object that holds the value of this here in order to send it in a query. Okay, we're going to have to create an object out of this. So the question now is, whenever we create an object to save form data to send it in a query, where do we do it? Well, we can actually do it in this if statement above. It might not be a bad idea to do that. And I'll explain why. So here we are at this if statement. And what we can do with this if statement is say, if this passes, if this does not match our regex, right, then we flash this message. Otherwise, if it's all right, then we create the that object that we need that will go ahead and send it to our database. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started with that. I'm gonna create, let me think here. Do I want to create it within here or, yeah. You know what? I can write another if statement just using the same regex. And I'll say this. How about this? If we get a match with our regex requirement and our email, then we create an object, then we send that object information back to a variable, and then we look at the results. Okay, so let's do that here. Actually, I'm already doing it here. Let's go here and say if regex, and then we say full match. So we're going to receive a regex variable for our email, I think we already have one. We're going to call it email regex. Email regex. So if our regex passes, and I'm going to pull in here user at email. Okay. If this goes through, oh, not all caps. Then if this goes through, then we say this current user, the one that we're looking at right now, we're going to create a variable called this user. And then we're going to create an object. And we're going to say the key value pair that we're going to create in this object is going to receive user at email. And so now we can send in this user here into our database. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. We're going to go ahead and say user.check database. This is the method that we built. And it's going to take in this user. Okay, so this user is going to be sent in to our method call. And email regex has an object that is called match that will return none if no match can be found. Yes, I think I'm using like an alternate method than I'm usually using here. If this doesn't work, then I'm going to fix it. And I usually have more than one regex expression to check an email, but I'm trying to reuse code here. If this doesn't match, if this doesn't work for us, there's a slight fix that we'll do. All right, so let's continue though. We are going to send this method call to a variable. We're going to assign this to a variable, and we're going to call this variable results. Okay. This results here. What we're going to do with this results is flash this message if we get something, right? If we find one email in there that exists according to how we checked it, then we're going to flash this message. Okay, so let's go ahead and write that final if statement. We're going to say if the length of results is not equal to 0, that means that it's greater than 0, then we're going to flash this message and we're going to set this to false. Okay, so let's see how this works. We have an if statement. We're going to check to see that the email regex, if it works, if it's proper, then we go ahead and say create an object. This object is what we need in order to send a query, because we're going to create this user here. We send it in as the data in our method here where it receives data, and sends an email where it receives email, where it receives email here in this data. So that reference to email in line 47 is what's being passed in here. And this if statement says if the results is, you can write it multiple ways. If it's greater than 0, or not equal to 0, that means it's something other than 0. It means 1 or more. Then we're going to say email is already in use. Please use a different email. And then we're going to set is valid to false. Okay. Now I need to check to see if this is going to work. So let's go ahead and restart my server and run it now. Okay. I just realized something. Before we even check to see if this works, we need to have an email already in our database that this will check against to see that this will trigger, right? Because this is only going to trigger if the results is greater than 0. So if we have to enter in an email here that matches an email already in our database in order to check if this works. So let's go ahead and create a user. Let's create a row of data where we would have an email to check. So how can we do that? We will go to our database and we'll write a query. Okay. Can someone help me write a query that inserts into our table? This should be easy enough. Okay, so help me insert one entry into our table with an email that I can check against.
Insert into users, and the argument is first name, last name, email, password, values.
Yes, sir. Insert into users. And then we're going to pass in the parameters here, the columns here. So we're going to say
First,
last name, email, password. And then we're going to say values. And then we say in here. We'll say for first name, we'll say Frodo. I'm gonna say Frodo dot Baggins at hobbit.com. Okay. Okay, and the last one here is going to be password 1234. It's not going to be hashed because we're creating it here. So, cool. All right, so we have Frodo Baggins at hobbit.com. Now let's go ahead and select. So there he is. Now, when we run our method by entering this email in our form, we should get back a flash message, or at least that's the goal. So let's see how we can make this do it. So let's go check here. Check one last time if this here, and this is what I am in doubt of. I'm trying to see if I can reuse code by not having to write another regex expression. So let's go ahead and do this. Let's see. Let's test it. So is my server still running? Yes. Okay, so let's go ahead and say Bilbo Baggins. Oh, no, wait. Was it Frodo or Bilbo? I think it was Frodo. Don't matter. This is where we check. So we say Frodo Baggins at hobbit.com. Hobbit.com sounds crazy. All right. Password one. And I want to see my flash message for already being in the database. So let's connect to MySQL not defined. All right, that is a good bug. Let's go ahead and connect to MySQL. So let's go ahead and do that at the top of our users model. We're not connected to MySQL, so we're going to say from Flask app.config.MySQL connection import connect to MySQL. And I'm also going to import the name of the database. I'm going to say from Flask app import DB, because that's what we named our database here. Okay. And I have Flash and I have, okay, cool. So I think this is all I need. Let's go ahead and restart it. All right. Okay. So Frodo Baggins. Frodo, there we are. Password 1. Now I want to see my flash message. Fingers crossed. Email is already in use. Please use a different email. Fantastic. So now we have a method that queries our database. And if the email is already in use, we should see this flash message pop up. Let's throw in an email that's not already in use so that we can see this not appear, to see that our validation is fully functioning. So, okay, that's fine. Let's go ahead and say another email. Gosh, think of a random email, Josh. Gosh.josh@gmail.com. Okay, this should go through just fine. And we get our password as we had hashed our password, and then we get this. We get redirected to the same spot because that's what we wanted. But we no longer have that validation message that says email is already in use, right? Let's try one more email. I think we can get the picture here. I'm going to say, let's try that email that we just used. gosh.josh@gmail.com. Okay. Me. All right, let's send this guy through. Check our database. There's my email that I had just tested. So let's go ahead and try and send this through one more time just to confirm it's working. Gosh, Josh. Gosh, that's kind of a cool one. That's kind of lame. All right, password 1 and register. Let's go ahead and send it. Email is already in use. Please use a different email. So as soon as I have that email in my database already, then we can no longer submit an email. So now we can say that we have crossed off all the validation for all of our registration. Okay, this is quite the milestone. We have now figured out how to create a proper user registration validation. The next part is easy, right? Once we are able to validate, we'll go ahead and send in a user. So let's go ahead and create our first user. Before I do that, let's check. I know this lecture is going on long, but we need to go on long today. If you have to go, I understand. You don't have to stay past this point. I think we've gone on long enough that if you have to go, you know, you won't be counted against you if you have to leave. But there are some things that we want to finish up here, which is create a user and then log in using that account. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and proceed with those steps. Let's go ahead and continue. I'm going to make a method that if our validation is clear, if everything works, if everything looks good, we are able to then create a user. Okay, so let's go ahead and create a class method that creates a user. Okay. All right. So let's create it. I'm going to go to my code here. Where am I? I am in a validate user. So I can, you know what? I'm just going to write it right above this static method. Why not? I'm going to say this is the method to create a user into our database. So we'll say at class method, and then we'll say our function def create user. It's going to receive class and data. And then we're going to send in our information in a query. So let's go ahead and let's create that query. Gosh, so annoying. Let's create that query. That's it. Okay. So insert into users, and then first name, last name, email, password, and then we're going to send in the values. And let's go ahead and then receive the values as if we were receiving them from an object, right? We haven't created that object yet, but we will. So we'll say first name. Last name. And then email. And then password. Okay, looking good. All right, so I have my query. Now I need to send this query along with the data that I would receive. So let's go ahead and say results.
Does
Yes.
this dollar sign mean anything, or it's just
From first
error?
name.
Oh,
Did I forget a dollar sign somewhere?
no,
First
I'm
name.
saying, yeah, first name. Does it mean? I'm not sure if it's an error or it means.
I think I meant to put in, instead of dollar sign, I think I meant to do this here.
Oh, okay.
Sorry
All right,
about that.
thank
Good catch. Good question. Appreciate it. Okay, so results. We're going to say the results equals our connect to MySQL, connect to my DB, and then query my DB, and then send in this query and the data. So, and then after that, let's return the results. Okay. So we need then to go ahead and create an object that's going to send this data into my query. Okay, so should the query be in the triple quotation mark? It's only for a multi-line query that you would have to do that. Just how you see how this one works? It's all in one line, and that's why it works just fine like this. If you wanted to see on multi-lines, then you would do that way, yeah. Okay. So, we need then to figure out a route that's going to activate this create user, right? How are we going to activate a route to create this user? And it's kind of so my questions are so easy that I think they can be like trick questions, but no, that's not a trick question. What do I do here? Where is the next step in order to trigger this method? What would I have to do to trigger it?
Use server.py.
Server? Good guess. But no, our server doesn't have our routes anymore. Where do our routes exist?
User controller.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Yes. Remember, this is our traffic guy. He receives routes and then sends that information along with what we had received in the form. So here's where we receive the form data. And our users register, we need to have well, actually, let me go ahead and go over to our controllers here. And here in our users registration form is where we had triggered that post method that we got in our index.html. So let's go ahead and pull that. This users registration method post, sends this user form data to this route, users registration. So we have that route created here on the right-hand side, users registration. So here is where we are going to go ahead and connect to our method, create user, right? It's here. So what do we have so far written? We have, well, let's take out these print statements. We no longer need to see this because that part of the lesson is done, and we need to clear up some of our view here in order to see what we're doing. Okay, so we have our hashed password. This is what hashes up our password. So we're going to need to use this in our object in order to send it to the database. So let's create an object then and call it new user, because that's what it represents. Every time we create a new user, we're sending the data into this object here. So we're going to say first name equals the data from the first name, request.form at first name. Okay. And then last name equals request.form at last name. Email, same. So we go ahead and do that. Email. I like to keep it consistent. Email. Request.form at email. And for the finale, we have our password. What does our password want? It wants this here. Instead of getting it from the request.form, because this already receives it from request.form and then hashes it up, right? Remember we do this? That's what we just deleted, our print statements to prove this. So we're going to say, at this point, we're going to say, send in that password hash. Send it in. Send in that long list of letters and numbers. Okay, so the gibberish here is the hashed password. hash slinging password. It's in here now. And so I realized I may have written this in the wrong spot because, oh, well, no, actually, we're not. Why I confused myself is because I see the return redirect is the exact same, but that's how we built it. So this return redirect is going to have to change. We're going to have to change this to go somewhere else now. Because we don't, as soon as we finish registering our user, as soon as we finish, well, we haven't finished. So I'm sorry, I'm jumping around in my thought because I'm seeing so many things at once. All right, so we've just created our object, okay? Created our object. This is going to have our data from our form. This is going to have our hash password. And then we know that we're going to have to go to another route after this. Okay, so what do we do with this? What do we do with this? We need to create that. We'll call on that method. We need to say user dot create user. And then we're going to send in that object. Okay. This is the method that we're going to use, user at create user. And then this is going to send in this object data as the proper format with the hashed password. Okay. But there's something here before I complete this step that I need to inform you guys about, which is the next step. So I'm looking ahead now. Well, first, I think I'm planning how I'm going to introduce each step of the process because I want us to learn without me just creating the final product. I want to create a step-by-step process. So what I want to do is instead of do this, I want to say print this here. I want to print it. Yeah. I want to print whatever I get back. So I want to see that this has been entered into the user. And then we're going to return redirect back here anyway. Okay, so we're not going to go to a new page yet, but I do want to see my new user in the database. Okay, so here's my method call. It should send it as soon as we get to this step. And so if everything is valid, it should work, right? So if it's not valid, then we're going to get those flash messages. If we get no flash messages, I think we're all good and we would have completed all the requirements. We hash our password, we put it in an object, then we call this method, then we return redirect. So now our user's registration will post to the database. So let's go ahead and see that post to the database. This is exciting here, right? We're creating our first user. So let's run our server again. I'm going to refresh this and let's get started. So, can I think of some names at this point in the day? Yes, I can always think of names. Henry Hobler. It's okay. Henry H at gmail.com. All right. So we have our email. Let's send in a password. And let's see how this goes. So if this sends through, then we should be able to call on this here and see it as ID number 3 in our table. So let's go ahead and click register. Okay, no validation messages. So that means that we filled in the form correctly. Okay, and so let's go to our database. Let's run a select all. And there we are, Henry Hobler, henryh at gmail.com. And I want you guys to see this. Check this out. Look at this hashed password. This is a brand new hashed password into our database. Okay. Sorry for my stumbling in thought to show us this, but there's still yet more we have to do with this method. We have not yet completed everything. We still have to go to a new place. We're going to redirect because when we create a user, we don't want to just come back to this page, right? We want to go to the next step. When we create a user successfully on any website, it's going to direct us to a new page where we say, "Hey, welcome. Now that you're registered, come take a look around. This is what you have." So we need to redirect to a new route that displays that index.html, not index, but an HTML page that shows that that we have logged in. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. Let me take a look at the time here. I know I've gone a little bit past a couple hours. So, what I want to do is finish this lecture, but let's do it in a bonus lecture because I don't want to keep everyone here mandatorily, right? So I want us to be able to say, okay, we've put in our hours in lecture. If you had enough lecture and you have to take a break before learning anymore, I can totally understand that. Okay, so let's look at our schedule, and I'm going to continue working on this on another recording, but I'm gonna tell us that right now we have to continue. So are we all good here? I'm mostly worried about Vincent. Vincent, am I holding you too long? Because I'm keeping this lecture, and I know you're engaged here while I'm talking, and I'm sorry to put you on.
I'm all good.
Put
But
you
yeah, I
on.
mean, definitely you've gotten through the juicy parts. So definitely opening up the rooms if people need to catch up on assignments. They can always just refer to the video,
Okay, cool. Let's open up the rooms then, and then just continue from here. All right. So if you are sick of this lecture, and I totally get it, you gotta go. You gotta study. You gotta put it to use. Then go do what you gotta do. But we're gonna continue here. We're gonna finish this registration. We need to move on to the next step. Okay. So what I want to do in my app is after I fill out this form, I want to go to a new route, like a home page route. And I want it to say, welcome at the first, like instead of hello world, I want it to say welcome and then the first name of the user that we had just received. So it should say welcome. And what did we just call our new person? We called him Frankenstein or something, something with an F. What's his name? All right, we wanted to say welcome Henry, not an F, H. So welcome Henry, or if the user that's just created was Josh, that welcome Josh or welcome Frodo. Okay, whatever the user that we had just created in our registration, we want to just see a blank page with a new route to a new index.html that's going to just say welcome and then the name of this person. Okay. All right. All right. So we're making progress. And at this point, I want us to recall, what is session? What is session? I know I made a lecture about this last week. So please tell me my lecture didn't go to waste. What is session? A way of storing stuff that can be used across routes. Yes. Oh, exact. That's perfect, James. A way of using stuff that can be stored across routes. So it's a variable that holds information that we can use across routes. So in our analogy, we said a session could be like a little ticket that holds information, right? Like our information of our order, we said, okay? That's not a perfect analogy, but what we're going to do now is use session in order to hold in the information of the user that had just registered, okay? We're going to have to take note of the information of the user that just registered. And what information do we want specifically? We're going to need the, well, let's take a look here at our MySQL connection. When we insert queries, when we do insert queries, what do we get in the return? ID number, right? So that newly created ID number is what we are then saving to session. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to say with this method call, I'm going to then save it because we get the user ID from this method call. So we're going to say, we are going to say user underscore ID, underscore ID. It's going to equal this method call, which returns that ID. And then we're going to save it to session. We're going to say session. And we're going to say session at user ID equals user underscore ID. So this value that had just been created when this method call was called, it returned an ID. We saved it to this variable. And then we said, let's give a value to the session object. All right, here's the key, user ID. Here's the value. And it's going to be this value of the number that we get from the method call to insert the user. Okay, so what do we get from saving it to session? What can we do from saving it to session? Well, let's have that question lingering in our mind, and I'm going to answer it as we continue. Okay, what do we gain from saving user ID to session? I know if we only encountered this once when we were working with Kyle's app, but can anyone does anyone remember? If you do, then please inform us. If not, then I'm going to go ahead and say it. It's good to jog our memory.
I think you need to use special secret key to access the data you store in session.
Yes, that's true. That is true. But what my question is, why we save user ID to session at all? What can we get? What can we gain from this? So that's the question I want us to ask as we build this new route. Okay. So we're gonna build a new route and have that question in mind. Why save this user ID to session? Okay, so let's then create a route to go somewhere else because we don't want to go back to the same page, right? This is just going to take us back to our index.html. We actually need to make some progress and move somewhere else. So let's move to somewhere called our dashboard, right? Not call it our dashboard. So this route to our dashboard now exists. And so we're going to have to create that route. Okay. So let's go ahead and create that route. And so I'm going to start creating comments for the routes. I'm going to say this route is for logging in. Here's a route that creates a user. And this is the route redirects us to our dashboard HTML. Okay, so let's then create that route. I'm going to say app.route. Here's my decorator. I'm going to say go to my dashboard. All right. And so what do we do when we get there? We're going to create a function here called dashboard. Why not just keep it consistent? All right. And then what does it do? At the end of what we do here is we return render template. And we are going to have to create an HTML file to reflect this. But let's go ahead and think here. We're going to create a HTML file called dashboard.html. Okay, so then let's go ahead and create that. I don't like to create from here because it gets a little sticky with clicking buttons and then you accidentally go in the wrong spot. So I'm gonna go from here. Okay. So let me just clear things up for myself here. So ls, and I'm gonna go into my Flask app, and I'm gonna go into my templates, and I have index.html. So I'm gonna say touch. I said dashboard.html. So here we are, dashboard.html. Okay. And let's just get a hello world in here. So, oh no, we're going to have to differentiate it. So we're going to say, hello, welcome to the dashboard. Okay, so I think this will work because as soon as we create a user, the user is created and, oh, where am I going? Okay, so here I am. And it redirects us to dashboard. Dashboard route is here. It's a function dashboard. And then a return render templates this thing here. Okay, cool. Okay, so let's see how this works. I'm going to create a new user. Oh, forgot a vital step here. I'm going to turn my environment back on. env shell python 3 server.py. Yeah, I just had a flashback. I was for a second asking a server for pie at a restaurant in my mind. All right, first name. Henry? I already went with Henry. Frank. Frank. Frank
Frank Smith.
Smith? Yes. Sorry? What was that, Hakeem? Were you just helping me with the name?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Frank Smith. Sometimes that's the hardest part about programming, just thinking of random things here. Okay, password one. Frank Smith. Now let's see this guy in our database. And not only that, we want to be redirected to a new route that says welcome to the dashboard, right? So let's create it. Welcome to your dashboard. All right, our app is looking like it's coming alive. And that's why I named it Frank, for Frankenstein. So it's coming alive. Let's continue. So what did I say that I wanted? I wanted a personal message. Hello, welcome to your dashboard. And in this case, we just logged in with Frank, right? So it's to say, welcome to your dashboard, Frank. And then personalized. Okay. So we want to be able then to take advantage of session, right? That's why I asked, why save the user ID to session? Why save it to user ID to session? Okay, let's then think of how we can use this. How can we use this? What can we do with a user ID? What can we do with the user ID? What can we do with the user ID and a database? We can query the database using the ID, right? So we can say, select all from the database from this ID row that give me all the information. You can give me everybody's first and last and email, as well as the user first name. So, right, so we can get anything we want from the ID, right? So we can create a select statement that says, select all from the database where ID equals 1, or ID equals 2, or ID equals 3. But it's always going to return that ID of that newly created user, and then we can take that ID and create a query with it when we get in this method here that sends us in the dashboard. So we can query with this session user ID our database in order to get that one specific user. And then once we get that user, once we query the database for that user by the ID, we can then say that user ID's first name or last name, any data from any of the columns in that row we can grab. Okay, so let's go ahead and create an if statement that checks if our user ID is in session, right? So let's check to see if our user ID is in session. A session user ID is created every time a new user is created, right? So as soon as a session user ID is created, we can use that as a check to see if the person at this dashboard route is there rightfully, or if they have been going here just by typing in the route, right? So let's say you're on this page, right? And you want to go to the dashboard. You want to go to the dashboard. So the way that we can do that, if we're aware of the route being to go to the dashboard, is by just typing dashboard here. This will take us to dashboard.html. So we want to be, so if I go here /dashboard, I'm there. That's not so secure, right? I only want to be able to access this page if there is somebody like a user ID in session. Okay. If someone is in session, then we could access this route. Okay. Only if someone is in session. How about that? Only if. Only if someone is in session, then we would be able to access this route. So this is what we're doing. We're creating an if statement. Okay. If ID is in session, right? We can check to see if there's an ID saved in session. If there's an ID saved in session, then we can access this route. So let's go ahead and do that. We know that anytime we create a user, we save user ID to session. So then what we want to do is when we get to this route, we say if user ID is in session, Then we're going to say user ID equals session user ID. So we're setting the value of an ID of this user ID. We're grabbing it again from session. So we've set this value from this user ID that we had received from our function call to add to the user. Now then we're grabbing it again, and then we're reassigning the value here. And why we do that? We do it so that we can send it in an object. So this is the data that we're sending into our database. So we're going to say user ID. So this is the key, and the value is what we had just put in this box here. So we'll say user ID. So it's grabbing that session user ID. It's putting it into this object. And now that we have it saved into an object, it's secure to send to our database. Okay, so we need then a method call we need to reference here a method call that gets data by that one user ID. And then save that value to a variable. Okay. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to say current user this is going to be the variable that holds that method call value. Okay. So let's go ahead and create that method call. We're going to have to access our database. So we're going to need to get a method that gets a user by the ID. Okay, so let's go ahead and create that. Where am I going to put that? Let me think here. I'm going to need to create that method in my model. All right, so let's go ahead and go to our model and create a class method that's going to be a getOneUser class method. Okay, so this is going to be select one user, or this is the R in CRUD, right? R read one user from database. Okay, so then we say class method, and let's create our function get user by ID. Takes in the class, it receives the data from our route, and then we say our query to be select all from the users table where the ID equals the ID value that we would have sent in, being here, user ID. All right, so here's the user ID. It's being received here. And did I forget something in my syntax? Yes, this S. Yes, thank you. Okay. All right, so I have my query. I know I'm a little squished here, but let me try to adjust a little. Okay, all right. Got my query. And let's then say let's say our result. Let's save our result. So we're going to say connect to my SQL, send in the database, query the database, query and data. All right. So now it's received that querying data. And what does this sort of method return? This is a select one, right? So it's a specific here. We have a where clause, select ID. So let's take a look here at our it will return a list of dictionaries. Remember that? A list of dictionaries. So every time we do a select, it returns a list of dictionaries. So a list of dictionaries looks like this. List, and then dictionary 1, info here, dictionary 2, info here. So there's key value pairs in here in these various dictionaries whenever we when we get a query. All right. All we're looking for is a select one, right? So we should only get one dictionary when we do a select one. We have a specific where clause. There should only be one ID per entry. There should be no duplicate entries of ID. If we have duplicate IDs, there's something wrong with our database. So we're going to select for a specific one. And what we need is index value 0. We need index value 0 of this list because this index value is going to have the row of the data. Okay, so let's then do that. Let's do that. Let's get that first row. Okay, so all we need to do that is say return and create a class object from the result that we had just created at index 0. Okay, so create an object out of this one object result, the first index in our row that we would have received back. Okay, so now we have result at index 0. That's that one object that we received for that ID. And so when we call this method, we're calling it from let's see here. We're calling it, where are we going to access this? Current user, here it is. So we need to get this one user by the ID. Okay, so let's see. I'm gonna go back to my controller and I'm gonna say current user equals user dot get user by ID, and then I'm going to set in the data. Okay, so why did I create this variable? Because this method here is going to return that first object, right? That's going to be index 0. The first and only object I need on that list is going to be sent in, is going to be returned here. And so that's what we are sending and receiving back. Once we have a value for current user, by sending in the data as an object from the ID from session, then we'll be able to save with this current user, save it to something that we can parse through in our HTML page using Jinja. So we'll say current user. Brooks, I see your hands raised. 1 second. So we're going to say current user equals current user. And this here is going to allow us to access the current user from our index.html, oh, sorry, our dashboard.html, and then select all the user data. Brooks, what was your question?
So when we did that return statement in the last class method, and it was, you said it was supposed to be the first object in the list of objects, so like the first person, the first user instance.
Yes.
Okay, so how does it, because that to me, like, wouldn't it always be the first one? Like, I guess that's what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Would always be like the first, ID of 0.
Yeah. Yes. So in this instance, we're only returning one object, right? Because we're specifying for one ID, but we still need to access that object within our list. And it's still at index 0. So what we get back when we query for this user ID, we should get a list with just one object that says ID equals the number, and then we should say first name, and it's going to equal to, whatever. Okay, so this object is the one and only object that we receive back. And it's still, though, at index 0. So in order to go into our array and get the value of this object, we still need to access it at the one and only index it is in. Does that make a little more sense?
Yeah, so since it's always just going to be one object, it's always going to be.
Yeah, just give me the first and only one that is going to appear from my query.
Okay, so it's just to grab it pretty much.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Nien?
So I was a little bit confused in the user controller line 42 to line 46. So you basically put session user ID to user ID, but then in the data you put user ID as
So
a
yes,
key,
there's
and
a
then
bit of juggling. It's like passing information, right? So before we get to this dashboard, how do we get user ID? Our user ID is the value of, let's see here. Our insert is going to give us an ID number of the row inserted, right? So this is an insert query. And so the value of this query is going to be the row of that value that we had just created. So let's say we create one user that's, Nien, right? Nien's going to be ID number 6, right, in our database because we had not created it yet. And oh no, 5. You would be 5, right? So the new user ID, that value 5 is going to be saved now to user ID. So now user ID has the value of 5. Can you see that?
yes.
Okay, so now that this has a value, we say save this value of 5 into the session object under user ID in the object of session. So now a session, which is an object that can be accessed across our routes, has a key called user ID, and it has the value of 5 from this variable that we just created. You see that so far?
Yes.
Okay, and then since we saved it to session, we redirect then to the dashboard once we had created that user, and then we check here to see, is our user ID in session? It should be a yes, right? If it's a yes, then we say here is a new variable called user ID, and we're taking that user ID from session and saving it to user ID. And then we say this object data is going to take this user ID and save it to this key value pair. And then with this data, are you with me so far, Nien?
Yes.
Okay. And then with this data, we send this object into our query, get user by ID. And so that receives this as the data, right? We're sending the data here. This goes into here, then passes it once we call this function. And then it's received in this query. Select all from users where ID equals user ID. Where do we get that? From the key here. This is the key that we're accessing.
Mhm.
Okay. And so it does the query, and this query is saved to this variable, which returns that list of objects, and then we access the first index in that list of objects. Okay. Are you with me
Okay.
then?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Fantastic. And if you lose me, it's okay. All right. So now that we have this if statement created, the reason why we have this if statement created is we want to be able to go to here if the user ID is in session. Only if the user ID is in session. So what we're going to do actually is create, first we're going to indent this so that it's only within this if statement. Okay, so now this return render template is only going to trigger if this if statement is true. So then what do we return if we go to this dashboard route and user ID is not in session? Any ideas? If the user ID is not in session, so that means the user it was not just created, where do we want to go? Back to the original route. Just say, hey, if you didn't go here by creating a user, then I want you to just redirect yourself back to here. Okay? I want you to redirect yourself back to this home base route. Okay? And so let's go ahead and see if this works. All right. So let's go ahead and refresh here. And let's go to our dashboard. This should not let us go through. If it does, then my thing isn't working the way I want it. Okay, so it's not working the way I want it. And I know why. It's because we have not yet cleared session. Okay, so session is saved somewhere, and that information is still accessible whether we've created a user or not. Okay, so this is still ringing true. User ID is still in session. So there's something we want to do whenever we want to clear session. Okay, so let's create a route to clear session. I'm going to call this the logout route. Okay, so eventually we're going to have a button that points to this route. But what we want this route to do is clear session. So then we say destroy session. And we're just going to say session dot clear. And then return redirect. And take me back to here. Okay, so this is going to be the way I clear my session. If I go to this route, log out, it should run session.clear. It takes me back home. And then once I'm back here once I've cleared my session by hitting the log out, then I will be able to test this properly. I should not be able to go to my dashboard if my session is cleared. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to say log out. Log out. Oh, sorry. Need to restart my server. I made too many changes before I realized I turned it off. Okay, here we are. Now let's go ahead and enter that route again. Log out. There we are. Okay. Now this should have cleared my session because I said session.clear every time I hit this route. In fact, I want to just say print session is now cleared. Okay, so let's check this. I want to see that print statement session is now cleared. So let's see it. /logout. Session is now cleared. So we now have successfully cleared session. So now that we have done that, if we now try to access our dashboard route, what do we get? /dashboard. Ooh, redirect. All right, get your spelling right. Okay. Let's go to our dashboard /dashboard. And we know we're not in session, right? So what happened? We go back then to our original route, dashboard. So now it's protected. We can't just go to this route and load this page by entering the route as we saw there, dashboard. We have to have a user ID in session now in order to be able to access this page. Okay, we need to let's pause here to see how well we understand this one. And we're nearly done. We're nearly done. Couple more things to do. Okay. So what do we have here? We have the ability now to check if our user ID is in session. If it is, then we go ahead and create this object, and then we send it, and then we should be able to access this page. And not only that, but we send our current user into here. So we get that ID value of current user. And actually, sorry, excuse me. We get it by the ID, but what do we get here? We get a whole object, right? This here is an object that we can then access in our current user. So let's go to our dashboard and start building our dashboard so that we can see the information that we desire. It's going to be real simple here. And all I want to do in my dashboard is say, well, hello, welcome to your dashboard, and then name of my user. So I'm going to say, because it's saved to session, I'm going to say oh, sorry, it's not saved to session, excuse me. It's saved to this variable, current user, which is getting the data from the method call. So excuse me, I sometimes overspeak. So this here is getting it's allowing access to that object, the first and only object in the row that we need. All right, so accessing that object, we say, hello, current user dot first name, right? And it actually knows each thing. We can say last name. It knows that we have a last name. It has a password. We only want a first name. So first name. And so let's go ahead and create a user. and see that welcome sign work. Okay, so let's do that. I'm gonna think of a name. Squidward SquarePants. Square at gmail.com. Okay. Okay. Password 1. Yes. All right. Oh yeah. Okay. Okay. So what I want to see when I create this, when I register this user, is that welcome message that I saw there saying, hello, welcome to your dashboard. And then that current user dot first name. So it should be Squidward. Register. Oh, I'm missing it. There's something there I'm missing. Why is it not printing? Did I make a typo? Current user. There's something I'm needing in the Jinja. Do I have session right now? Yeah, I should have session. I should have, oh, maybe my query didn't work. Let's check my here, running query, select all from users where ID equals 5. So that did work. Okay. Maybe it didn't get saved in the passing of values here. Okay. So let's see here. What do I run when I create my user? I say, okay, I say current user is get user by ID. Okay, am I selecting it? Did I get that select? Yes. Okay. And then I save it to result, and I take that result and I return it. What if I just try to access the data here? So if I say print current user dot first name, am I going to get that here? So let's see here. This is my current user's first name. Okay, so let's go ahead and try that again. All right. So let's go ahead and do it. I'm going to go in here and type in a new user. I'm just going to start picking names in the Zoom chat. Simon Cowell, because it's not our Simon. And password one. Okay. I want to see if it didn't print, then we should see it here. So let's go ahead and run it. Okay. User object has no attribute first name. That's why. So we're not getting the right attribute from our value that we're receiving. So let's see what we've received back. How about we just print current user? How about we just print current user? Okay, so that did go through. Let's see. Another name, Hakeem. Hakeem Phoenix instead of Joaquin Phoenix. Okay. Do you know that actor, Hakeem? No? Famous actor.
No.
Okay. Alrighty, here we are. Let's see this. I want to see this printed. Okay, we got somewhere with that. User object still has no attribute first name.
Did you save it? Save the file.
I did save it. I did save it. Let's see here. I said this is my current user's first name, and then I didn't remove that from the line, but let me see here what I got. This is my current user's first name. Why is it still printing here? Okay, I'm sorry. I'm not sure why it's not saving. Let me try that one more time. Okay, come on. Come on, software. All right, a new name, Manjira. Can't think of a interesting last name. Last name. No, I can't just put last name for last name. I'll put her last name. Then go. Hold on. Manjira V, password 1. Okay, so I want to see here just this is my current user. Just like this. So I should see this print statement and I should see why I'm not able to access that. Okay, so let's go ahead and register. Invalid email address. After all that, okay. Elmo Bird. Okay. Okay, so here we are. It's still trying to access first name. Why is it? You know what? Let me restart my app. Sometimes that's what's necessary. So I need to restart this. Good debugging reminder. Let's log out. One more new user. Just keep thinking of names. Big Bird. Bird. Gmail.com. Password 1. Okay, what do I get now? This is my current user. Okay. So now we got an object, Flask app models user model dot user object. Okay, so why can't I use dot notation to grab it? Dot first name. You can get the email or ID with dot notation. Yeah, I mean, they're just as equal values that I should be able to get. If I can't get it, then I'll try something else. But let me just try this one more time. I have a feeling that restarting my server fixed something. So let me just rename, keep thinking of new name SpongeBob. Square Pants. Right. Here we are. Please work. Okay, now we know. This is the problem. User object has no attribute first name. Are we saving that value right? Let's see here. Get user by ID. In class data, select all from users where ID is equal to ID. This should return an object of a row of objects or a list of objects. And then we send the query through in result. And then we say result at 0. That's what we're getting back.
Is that supposed to be at the user ID at the end, the semicolon? No,
Where?
after like the user underscore ID, after the S, is that supposed to be no?
Yeah, I mean that won't do anything. It's just one
Oh,
line.
okay.
Good. I mean, good guess. Um. Hmm.
Can you please show the class definition in the model.py?
Yeah.
User model.
So this is the model. This is the class method here. Do you see it?
Not the method, the class.
Oh, the class here. Oh, haha, there we are. Wow. Beautiful. Thank you, Manjira.
You got
Fantastic.
it.
It's you can tell it's the end of the day here for me, and I am burnt to the wick. Let's go ahead and run this again. What a save, Manjira. Okay, now give me the first name. Think of a new name, Josh. New name. All right, think of another character. I'm gonna call this guy Doug.
Jason.
Doug what?
Jason.
Okay. I like your creativity. Doug Jason. Alrighty, come on, Doug. Doug is in. Okay. Doug is in the house. All right, now that I'm in the house, did we understand how I fixed that? And now, not me per se, but Manjira. Good eye, Manjira. Good thought. Okay. Something there, my class there was completely broken. So very nice catch. And save the recording as well. Okay, so what we want from here, we want one more thing when we get into here. We want a button on this dashboard, and this button is going to allow us to log out without having to hit that route by itself every single time. So let's make an A tag. We'll say it to log out, and we'll call this the log out button. Okay. Okay, so let's go ahead and see that. Here's my log out button. So if I click this, now I'm logged out. Okay, now I am now successfully able to create a user, go on to the next page, see that name of that user when I'm logged in, and then hit the register and continue. Now let's look at my database for a second because I just added a whole bunch of users. I just tried 11 times to make this work, or more, or not 11, but that many times to get in. So here we are. Here's all our hashed passwords. We have our users. Simon, Squidward, Hakeem, Elmo, Big Bird. I'm in there too. Let's go ahead and do the last bit. All right. So what do we have left? We have
Login.
yes, sir. So we need to be able to log in, go to the next page, and see the dashboard say, welcome, and then the username. Okay. Once we've completed this step, we are done for the day. Okay. Last thing we have to do, and we have a full, complete user login and registration. We can use these same methods on our upcoming projects that require login and registration. It's very simple. You have to just copy and paste really in order to get this functionality. Okay, so I appreciate you guys' hard work and sticking with me. We're nearly done. I promise it's going to pay off in the end. So we have our login. Now let's take a look at our login index here. So we want to go, let's clear everything. I get so cluttered here that I'd like to just restart with a fresh, clean slate. So here we are. Now, this form, when we click the button login, should take us to this route, users login, right? And what this method is, it's a post. We're posting the email and password. And this is part of the request response cycle. So we're going to request to see if our database has an email associated with this password. If there's an email and password that match together, we want to be able to go on to the next route or to the dashboard page from this user's login route and then see that user that we logged in. Okay, so let's go ahead and begin to create this method. And so let's go to our controllers where we begin the route. And let's see if we have one already created. Yes, here it is, users login. And so let's build upon what we already have. Okay, so we have this correct. We have our methods post. If our user is not validated correctly, then we redirect to if it's not a proper email or password, then we're gonna redirect, right? Because this is the validate login. Let's pull that up as well. Let's just remind ourselves what we did there. Validate login. And so this actually checks to see if our email and password is less than a few characters. Now, normally we wouldn't have to do this. All we have to do is check to see that that those exist or not. It should return invalid email or password, even if it's blank, right? Because there's no entry that's going to be blank. So this is not actually going to reflect what we would normally see here, but it's okay to leave this for now. I wanted just to show us how we could have different session messages pop up here, not session, excuse me, flash messages, how we can have different flash messages per form. So that's why I created that there. So what we want to do is check to see if the user is in the database. We want to check to see if the user is in the database. Okay, so when we get to this route, we have this user validate that we actually don't really need. Okay, so again, I wanted to show you that this was just so that you can differentiate between validation. So actually, I don't need to see this, and I actually don't even need this method, but I'm not going to delete it yet because I just want to keep it there in case people want to refer back to it. But because I don't need to validate the login this way, I'm only going to check to see if there's data related to what was entered in there. Okay, so I'm going to create an object called data, and I'm going to say email, it's going to equal the request.form email that we would have received from the form. Okay, now we send this in an object, and why do we put it in an object? Because we're going to make a query out of it. Okay, so we're going to say user, and then we're going to need a method that queries the database by the email. Okay, we're going to need a method that queries the database by the email. So it's going to have to, we're going to have to create that before we continue here. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to go to my class methods and I'm going to say this one here. The reason we have this is to read one user from the database by the email. Okay, so let's go ahead and continue with this. In order to do that, I'm going to say class method. And then I'm going to say def. This is just a read one user by email function. Yeah, why not keep it like that? So let's go ahead and run this function. Okay. Okay, so what does this do? It is going to take in our object. It's going to receive that data from this object here. And it's going to say in my query, select all from users where email equals that given email. Okay. Now, let's save that to a result variable. So we're going to say results equals connect to MySQL, taking the DB. It's going to query the DB with that query and data. Now, what I want to do is say, if there's no results, then return that there are none, right? So we're going to say if not results, and that means that there is no email that matches here. Return none. This is going to say, this is going to tell us if we had a result from this query or not. Okay. This is going to tell us if we have a result from that query. Now, if this doesn't trigger, we want to return a user at results at that very first index. Remember, we're returning the first object that we have in that list of objects. So the very first object that we receive, that's what we're going to return if we can find a user with that exact email. Okay. What now we do with this here is call it from our controller. So we say user dot read one user by email, then we're going to send in the data. Okay. And now that we've sent this in, we're going to get a value of the first object returned to this here. So now let's save this to a variable. Now that this is going to receive a value, let's save it to a variable. I'm going to just call this user in the database. This one user in the database, save it to what that one user that we selected from that email. And this is the email put in the login form. Okay, so now we have that saved into user in DB. And what we want to do with this is say, if the user is not in the database. So this is saying, if this is not true, if this is false, If the user is not in the database, if this is true and that there is no user in the database, then let's go ahead and return a flash message that says invalid email or password. And it's going to be related to login. Okay, that's what this flash message is related to. And then we say return redirect back to here. Return redirect there. So if we don't find this email in the database, we should see this flash message. And so we can test this by putting emails that are in the database, and we should not see the flash message, right? So let's go ahead and test it now. Here we are. Now let's refresh. And let's go ahead and enter an email. Yeah, let's do an email that we had not used before. something@something.com. Okay, so let's see if that flash is not defined. Okay, so what happened there? How come we didn't get that flash correct? Let's see. Did we not import flash? Oh, we had to have. No, I don't think we did here. So let's go ahead and import flash here. Okay. Let's refresh this. something@something.com. We know that's not in our database, right? So let's. This is the reason. The reason I'm choosing this random email. Doesn't matter what you put. It just can't be one of these. We want to test to see that validation says that there's no such email in the database with this here. So the message should pop up. All right. So let's go ahead and say login. Invalid email or password. That is great. That's great. So let's go ahead and enter in an email that we know is in there, frank.smith@gmail.com. frank.smith@gmail.com. So let's go ahead and say login. Okay, now this is different. We didn't account for if it matched. We just have a method here that's going to flash here. So I think this is working. All right, as long as we enter a valid email. Let's see another one. DougJ@gmail.com. Let's Doug. Here we are. So Doug. Let's do a slight variation. Doug, and then 1, 2, 3. That's right. So login. Okay. So then what about this? DougJ@gmail.com. So let's see where this takes us. Okay, this takes us to our new error. So we know that our method is giving us that flash message correctly if the email is not in the database. Okay, and it's redirecting us back here with this flash message. Now, we do need to say what happens if we get that email correct. So let's go ahead and account for that so that we can see how close we are to wrapping this up. So let's go ahead and go into our user's login here. Okay, so this checks for the email. Now, we also need to check for a password. We also need to check for a password. We need to check if that password is in our database as well, right? So here it's going to get a little wordy. So let's brace ourselves for that. But we know in the end that if this last step, if our if our password is in our database, we want to then do what? We want to return redirect back to our dashboard, which is going to lead us to our dashboard route, which then gives us, it checks to see if user ID is in session, and then it goes ahead and presents that data. Okay, so we're going to read, if we're successful, then we get here. But so far we say if the user is not in the DB by the email, then we go ahead and flash this message that's saying invalid email or password. And so let's go ahead and say our second requirement that we want to check is if our password is in our database. So we want to say if not, bcrypt. And here's a method related to bcrypt called check password hash. Check password hash. Okay. And what is it going to check? Let's look at this user in DB. Okay, so this is what we're seeing here. And we're going to use this. We're going to say if user in DB dot password, and we're also going to check to see if it matches the request.form password. So this is taking in our data from request.form and comparing it to our user in db.password. And remember, this is what the user that we got from checking that one email to see if it's in the database. Now, if it is in the database, it creates this variable. Or no, it creates, sorry, excuse me. It creates the variable no matter what. And it uses the value in the variable to check if it's in the database. Now, the value is still there, and we can still see this user's password by the email that we had entered in. Okay, so when we check that, we're going to check the password here by saying user in db.password, and then we're going to compare it with the request.form password. And then in this if statement, if it does not match, then we flash a message saying invalid email or password. We're not going to specify which one they got wrong. We're not going to let them guessing as to what they got right and wrong. Maybe they got the email right and the password wrong. We're not going to let them know. We're just going to flash the same message. But for the building's sake, we're going to say, we're just going to say something like incorrect password right now, so that we know we're getting this right. But when we finally build it, when we're finished, we're gonna send this message actually. But right now, for the testing sake, we're gonna differentiate the flash message so that we know we're getting the right one for the right reason. Okay, so then we say login. Okay, this is a message specifically for login. And if it does not, if our password related to the user that we just queried for, based on that email, does not match the request.form password that we received from the form, then we're going to flash this message and relate it to the login. And we're also going to redirect back to our slash route. Okay. Now, if this does not trigger, then we do not go here. And if this does not trigger, then we don't go here. So if these both don't trigger, that means our email is in our database, and not just that, but our password correctly matches with the email that they would have entered. If that's true, if these do not qualify, right, then we don't enter here. We actually go to the dashboard. And what do we want to do before we go to the dashboard? We want to check to see if user ID is in session. So before we redirect us to the dashboard, we have one last thing to do, which is set session. Oops. User ID to equal the user in DB dot ID. We're taking that user's ID from the email that was just entered, and then we're saving it to session if these don't trigger, right? So this is not going to trigger, this is not going to trigger, then we successfully get to line 70, and then we get to line 71, which redirects us to our dashboard with that session ID. So first, let's go ahead and check to see if we have an incorrect password. Okay, so I have a correct email here. Now let me go ahead and enter in a password that I know I didn't enter for Doug J. I actually don't even remember what I entered for. Oh, it was password 1. That was the same password for all of them. All right, so let me see, ASDF. Now I know that's not the password, so I expect to see the message now. Oh, and it broke. So always remember to restart your thing. And I'm pretty sure we're almost done here. So let's go ahead and finish this up. Let's go ahead and say Doug J. And we say random password ASDF, log in. Bcrypt is not defined. One more thing we need to get this up and running. It's because we have used bcrypt in our I thought we had defined bcrypt. Let's go ahead and see what we are missing then. Request.form B. Did I spell that right? BCRYPT. Bcrypt is here. Flask bcrypt, import bcrypt. Let me restart it. No, I already restarted it. Well, I wonder what it is. If not bcrypt checked password. Maybe something is invalid in the way that I was submitting the form. Let me just double check that. This should be the last thing that I need to do before we are finished. So I appreciate your guys' attention. Let's see if we can find this.
In the learn, it said that we have to import flash.bcrypt.
Oh,
I don't know if it does the same thing, but
let's check that. Let's check that. Where are you seeing that? I might have missed that. I thought I had already done this one.
Second part, the second code block from
So let's check to see if that's there. Flash bcrypt, import bcrypt, and I have this line as well. And I'm pretty sure I already did this, right? So what's the deal here? Should be very close unless I have some sort of typo in my check password hash. And if not, bcrypt check user in DB. We're so close. I can't give up yet. All right. So let's take this slow. No need to rush. We're already almost done. If not bcrypt, so it's telling me it doesn't even recognize bcrypt, but I know bcrypt is there because I had used it previously on my routes. Did I not? Here, bcrypt.generate hash password. So I know bcrypt is working correctly here when I register. But for some reason, it doesn't want to say use it here. So let me just expand this a little bit. Okay, so let's see. It's usually just down to one character that's wrong in a typo somewhere.
Could it? I'm
Yeah,
not
can
sure.
you check the spelling again? I'm not sure.
Yeah, either spelling totally. But I was thinking maybe the variable that we set it to, it was some, I'm trying to find it, the cryptid variable, if you could remember what that was. Password hash. When we did bcrypt generate password hash, is it supposed to be that instead of session user ID or something like that? I'm not too sure, but
You might be onto something. So let's see here.
line 22 up there, password hash equals. So is it supposed to be password hash instead of?
No, because we're sending this value.
Mm.
This is to the database as a hash. What this does is it checks the user ID. I have a feeling it might be this here. Check user in DB. Yeah. If not, decrypt password hash. Okay. I'm literally
I
not
see
gonna
it.
see it.
The crypt, yeah. CRYPT.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, that's
You get to a point when you code so long, everything just starts to float around and jumble. Okay, let's cross our fingers for this. Okay, what's an email we know? Doug J. Okay, here we are. DougJ@gmail.com. Let's give him password 1. Doug's our winner. All right, so let's go ahead and log back out. We have to test to see if our password validation works. So it's say password 2 or 21, don't matter. All right, let's log in. Incorrect password. Very nice. So now we're able to check in our database if a email has the correct password associated with it. So now let's go ahead and change this validation method so it says invalid email or password, so we don't let our people know what they got right or wrong. So let's keep it mysterious for them. Invalid email or password. So if they get either one wrong, we're not going to give them a guess as to what they got right. Okay, now a couple more things before we call it a day. Let's go ahead and change the input type to password. Here, let's change
Is
the
there any reason why you're not kind of specifying if it's the password or if it's the email that is wrong?
One more time for me, Hakeem, please.
No, with the specification that you're not specifying if the email or the password is invalid. Is there any reason why they do that?
Right, because it will only find valid entries in our database. So, you're asking, let me just make sure I understand that what you're asking correctly. You're asking, how come we don't need this validation anymore for checking to see this validate
No,
again, right? This here?
no. What I was asking is on the what is that? Is that the user controller? Like
Yeah.
why doesn't it specify like even if I put an email in, then it says my email is wrong instead of saying my email or password is wrong.
Oh, because they should know. I mean, whenever you're trying to enter an email here, if they have a valid, if they would have registered, they would have known the requirement for what an email would be here. And so if we send in an email like this, right? If we just send this, it should still give us the same message. Invalid email or password. So we don't need to validate their email or password when they're logging in the way that we would validate when they're registering for the first time. When they're registering for this first time, then we check that they entered in the data in the valid email format. But because when we're logging in, it would have had to be a valid email format to have created the user. This thing is only going to check valid email formats. If you enter in something that's not an email, it's just going to tell you invalid, and it's not going to tell you why. It's going to assume you know that you would have created if you had registered correctly, you would have put in you can account for it. You can make a regex that says you have entered an invalid email in your login. Please check your email again. You can do that. But for my preference, I would say, and this is not mandatory for the test or anything, so this is just preference for a valid user login registration, is that if they already registered, they already would have known how to create a valid email, so they would know to create to enter in that valid email to log in. Does that make sense?
Yep, yeah.
Okay, so there we are. So we have now our login and registration. Now it's not going to accept any random email or password. Our password is now protected here. We can't register without the right validation, and we cannot enter in here without getting a correct email and password match. Let's just double check this. I want to say dougj@gmail.com, and I'm going to enter in another email related to another user, another password to another user. Oh no, they all have the same password. So let's create a new well, let's just do it. All right, so let's do this. Who's Doug's friend? Skeeter. Okay, Skeeter. Skeeter agree, and he has blue face, so Skeeter Blue. And say skeeterb@gmail.com. And we're gonna give him you don't see this, but I'm putting in password 2. Okay, just trust me here. I'm putting in password 2, so I should not be able to log in with password 1 with Skeeter. Okay, so skeeterb@gmail. Okay, welcome to your dashboard. I'm gonna log out and let's log back in. skeeterb@gmail, and I'm gonna say password 1. Invalid. So it's working great. At this point, this is now complete. We finished our login registration. It has all the correct validations for registration. It correctly checks to see if the user is in the database and if the email is associated with the correct password. And it should also let us know to that when we go into the dashboard, it greets us properly with the username, and we should not be able to access our dashboard by entering the route. And so now we have completed our login and registration. So what do we do? Where do we go from here? I know this has been a long day here. So let's go ahead and close this out. Recording's still on. So let's go ahead and close out this day. I know we need to take a break as well. I certainly do. So we've finished this afternoon lecture. We have now created a user login and registration. We should be able to go ahead and complete this assignment. Okay, so this assignment has all the validation requirements that we had gone over. And once we, I want you guys to recreate this from scratch. If you're still, watching this video, don't just copy the code wholesale. I mean, you won't be able to. I'm only going to leave it on the video. Okay. So once you have this login registration, what we do is once we're able to create a user and log in, we want to see the rest of that CRUD data. The stuff that we did on Friday with Kyle, where he created a movie list, created an actor, show the movie list per actor. And so this is the CRUD app that we are now logging into with our login and registration. So tomorrow, what we're going to do tomorrow is connect them together. Once we connect them together, we have something very similar to the exam. So whatever the exam is going to ask us, it's going to be login and registration plus CRUD that we would have created in our other app. So all I'm doing tomorrow is putting them together. Once they're together, you have what you need for the test. Okay? So I know it's a lot of information for us to learn, but once we do it once, and once it works once, we're able to take that working code and use it into our exam. Okay? You can take from your previous assignments, take from your previous projects, And let me tell you that most login and registration all look the same in every company. When I worked at the last company I worked at, this is basically the same functionality that we're teaching you how to do here. You're checking for validation, you're checking valid entries, right data. And if it's not in there, then we want to display that message with the correct message. Okay, so let's go ahead and take one last poll and close this out. How well do we feel like we are hanging on? And even if it's just by the edge of our teeth here, how well do we understand how to create that login and registration now that we went through it step by step? We should be able to follow along with the video, right? It's all in the video. So I'm going to go ahead and upload this video as soon as we finish this recording. Thank you guys again for sticking and being focused and helping me debug the whole way. Tomorrow, we're going to put it all together and have our last finished app before we move on to our exam on Wednesday. And I know this has been going on a long time. I've never had a lecture this long, but we had to do it. Okay, we had to do it. We couldn't pass this up. I wanted to pass this information along. Didn't want to leave you guys hanging, figuring this out on your own, getting frustrated. So now you have it. And if any of your other classmates get stuck, you guys are the guys to consult. All right, so now let's go ahead and close this out. Let's stop the share. And any last questions before I end the recording?
Well, it's not a question as such, but you could give the files of the code that you just did, because we have the bonus that we need to add on that we can do by ourselves because of time. We won't have enough time to actually rewrite all of this and
I'm just
submit
gonna
it.
post it to Discord, okay? But what I don't want to see is I can read my own I can read my own writing. I can see what looks like my type of comments, what looks like my type of validation message. I know what looks like, what my if statements look like. If I just see my code on the exam, I'm going to be frustrated. Okay? And I don't want everyone taking it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to post it to GitHub, and I'm going to leave you guys here, the only people that are at the end of this recording, to know that it's on GitHub. I'm not going to just put it on the Discord so that you guys that have worked hard to stay and see it can grab it. And if someone else wants to know, then you guys can pass that information. But I just don't want to just plop it on everyone's desk and say, here it is, just copy this. So I'll post it to GitHub, and then you guys will be able to grab this from GitHub. But this is also your assignment. So what I'm thinking is I will post the code tomorrow. I want you guys to still study this video and build this bit by bit, because this is the assignment. If I just post it, you guys could submit it for your assignment for the end of the day assignment, okay? So I'm not going to post it yet. The recording is going to be there. You can build it. You can fast forward the recording, take a look at every step. And I feel better about that than just straight up posting it, because it's pretty much this assignment. But I needed to get it to you guys because we're so close to the exam and we had the MLK day. Okay, so thank you, Manjira. I appreciate your question. Any other questions? Okay, fantastic. Let's go ahead.